Good afternoon, and welcome to the DFS Army YouTube channel. I'm Razzle11, and you can find me on X at Razzle11grinds. Going to take a look at the matchups for Game 3 of the World Series between the Blue Jays and the Dodgers. Series is in LA for the next 3 games, next 3 days, etc. We get a pitching matchup between Tyler Glasnow and Max Scherzer. Some question marks coming from both sides in that matchup. Dodgers look dead in Game 1. Toronto looked dead in Game 2. What are we going to get from Game 3? That's the big question here. LA definitely has the advantage going back home, taking one of the 2 in Toronto. It definitely could be a series that doesn't make it back to Toronto. That's the plus of stealing one on the road to begin it. If you can go on a 3-game win streak at home, you don't have to leave home and you get a parade a few days later. So, very interesting spot. Baseball fan in me wants this game, the series to go 7. So I think the best route for that would be Toronto pulling off tonight, maybe tomorrow instead, but pulling off tonight would probably be ideal. And I do think, on the surface, they have a better chance of pulling it off tonight than they do tomorrow. So, with that said, let's just jump in and take a look and see what we're trying to do for this particular matchup. I haven't had a chance to dig into any pitch profiling for either pitcher yet. That'll come after this video for the members at DFS Army. Tyler Glasnow, definitely much greater ceiling than Max Scherzer at this point. Both guys have some volatility. Glasnow probably doesn't have the same volatility as Scherzer, but it's really close. When Glasnow's off, he's just allowing a bunch of base runners, thanks to walks, etc. He did walk 4 the first time he faced Toronto this season. 43 walks in 90 1/3 innings. Basically like a 4.4 per 9. It's an aggressive number. Doesn't give up a lot of hits, but those walks happen. And then when home runs do happen, they're generally with guys on base. Just 1 home run per 9 during the regular season. His postseason, 8 walks in 13 1/3. A ton of walks. Super tough to hit. Strikeouts are there. Now, obviously, this matchup, strikeouts aren't great, but he did strike out 8 during the regular season against Toronto. The big issue here is the fact that Toronto just falls off a ton of pitches, and that's a bad thing for Glasnow because his control gets rougher and weaker the longer he goes in at bats. Pitch count's going to rack up early for him because of the way that he pitches. Meaning that his ceiling is tougher to get to in this particular matchup. Gives up home runs at a higher rate at home, but his walk rate plummets, strikeout rate increases. So there's a benefit for him pitching at home. He's ridiculously dominant when at home this season. I mean, he's definitely my preferred of the 2 starting pitcher because the other one being Matt Scherzer. If we had 37, 38-year-old Max Scherzer, I would feel better. He did kind of turn it back a little bit in his last start 11 days ago. It's been a while. Against Seattle. In Seattle, even. But he did walk 4. It felt like there was a chance for Seattle to kind of get to him, and they struggled a little bit in those spots. Arguably his best start in, 2 months-ish, or a little over 2 months. The one big issue that I see over his last 8 starts or 7 starts, home run balls. 9 home runs allowed in those 7 starts. 3 of those starts, multiple home runs. So, that's a big issue when taking on a team like the Dodgers. Home runs certainly come in big spots. He's allowing home runs every 4.5 innings. Basically 2 per 9. It's a pretty high number. and allowing plenty of base runners over his last 10. Should say 2 per 9 over his last 10. But yeah, it is about 2 per 9 on the season too. 20 and 90 and 2/3 innings. Did face the Dodgers once during the season. Did allow a home run. Did allow a bunch of base runners. Had a respectable outing. His road numbers overall, not as good as his home numbers. Walk rate jumps quite a bit. Hits allowed rate is down, but his home run allowed rate kind of decreases a little bit, drops to about 1.8 per 9, which probably is a plus. Strikeout rate goes up, but still, it's dangerous. The Dodgers do offer more strikeout upside than Toronto does, but is Scherzer the kind of pitcher to get to that upside at this point in his career? I'm not so sure. I don't want to bet against Max Scherzer, basically ever. He could be 55 years old, rolling out of bed, and trying to just get down the stairs, and I would not have bet against him and showing up in a big time spot. But that doesn't mean we can't, agree that his ceiling is pretty capped at this point in his career. When it comes to the hitters in this game, looking at the Dodgers first, obviously Ohtani, phenomenal. A hit in 6 straight postseason games. Strikeouts have kind of disappeared so far. He did have 2 in game 1, but that was a big issue early in the postseason, or earlier. He's getting on base, he's scoring a run. He scored 6 runs over the last 4 games. A Shohei Ohtani that's heating up is probably a really bad thing for Toronto, especially against a guy like Scherzer, who can give it up to some left-handed bats. Ohtani probably going to be the most popular bat for obvious reasons. So what do? You almost kind of fade him in spots. I can see the argument to fading him in the utility and only playing him as a captain. Capturing that big-time game and just hoping he's mediocre. I think that makes the most sense. But on the other side, I can see you fading him in the captain spot and only playing him in utility and just hope that, he walks twice. Or gets a single, a walk, maybe scores a run. Something in here. So 10 fantasy points. Where he might be needed in the utility spot, even though at that price point, there's a route to where, 10 to 12 points isn't enough to be in the winning lineup. It just really depends on who in the lineups are doing the damage, because there is value in the bottom half of each lineup. If those guys get on base a couple times, etc., then it's going to make Ohtani have to be that 16 plus fantasy point guy to really matter. Mookie Betts hasn't really gotten things going. He had profiled pretty well in the first 2 games and wasn't anything special. He's going to show up at some point in this postseason. I mean, he did against Cincinnati, absolutely dominant in this game. But since then, he's been blah. Cheaper than Ohtani now, but very similar in that I almost feel like you can fade him in the utility spot and play him, in a captain lineup or 2, and just hope he wakes up like that Cincinnati game. And if he doesn't, that he stays similar to what he's done so far. Because at the end of the night, are we going to be really upset about missing 5 or 7 fantasy points in our utility spot? Probably not in this game. If it was a dominant, like game 2 with Gausman versus Yamamoto, and the Dodgers didn't blow up the way they did. If it's a 2-1, 3-1 type game, I think you might need those points in the utility spot. But in a game that we think there might be a few more base runners, etc., I don't think missing out on 5 or 7 from bets is going to kill you. Freddie Freeman, I've liked the matchup so far, and he has kind of underperformed as well. Reaching base in both games. Just 2 strong performances in the postseason. Similar to Betts, but I like that he's cheaper, and I like that he's done it in the World Series before. So he's somebody that I'm definitely trying to get exposure to. Teoscar's struggling with strikeouts. 9 of them over his last 4 games. He's going to break out at some point. I just think he's somebody I'd only dart throw in the utility. They're not utility, in the captain spot, and just not play in utility. Max Muncy, one of my favorite bats in the series, hit a home run. Big time upside, but super volatile. The one nice thing is he generally walks, so there's some floor to it. Will Smith woke up 7+ fantasy points in 5 straight postseason games. A hit in 6 straight. So he's going to be one of my favorite guys. Pages finally got a hit. Profiled well in the first 2 games, didn't perform. He's a dart throw, really. He's higher owned than we like to see just because he's so cheap and he makes things work with all the expensive bats in this series. I know I skipped over like Edman, and that might be it. Kike is certainly fine. But he's just not somebody I'm excited to roster. Vlad, obviously, the best Toronto bat. 3 for 8 so far in the series. He's definitely fine. He's somebody we're using all over the place. Springer, probably a pretty good play in both spots. Has, just 2 games this postseason without a hit? 3 games, I guess, going back to the first one. So he's just been steady and consistent. Bichette's tough to play. A walk-in hit in game 1 was pinch ran for in like the 7th inning. He's just not 100%. Didn't start game 2. Got a pinch hit at bat. It's going to be starting today from what I understand. But the problem is he going to get run for in the 6th, 7th inning? Depending on it. His upside's just super limited. And I just don't know if he has the power, with his knee to hit home runs. So he's somebody that I'm thinking about a fade and just letting him beat me. Varsho obviously hit that big home run in game 1. Non-existent in game 2. Definitely somebody that has big-time upside, so captain spot for sure. Alejandro Kirk feels like the guy that matters the most to the Blue Jays. Huge game 1. Basically nothing in game 2. Had a huge game against Seattle in that series. Had a huge game against the Yankees in that series. He's one guy that I think we want to be over field weight on. Edison Barger. Huge grand slam, obviously, in game 1. Nothing in game 2. A volatile guy for sure as well. Very similar to Varsho, but he's the one guy that's probably going to get pinch hit for. He and Lucas, if the Dodgers go to a lefty out of the pen, but they don't have a whole lot of trustworthy guys. Banda, Kershaw, I think, are the only 2. I might be missing one off the top of my head. Ernie Clement just keeps hitting. He's the cash play, plug and play in this postseason. Just keeps getting on base, getting hits, etc. Super cheap and should be in most of our builds, to be honest. Lucas hitting second, definitely a cash type play, but it is worrisome. He does get pinch hit for and will be, by somebody. Miles Straw, maybe. Hasn't really shown a ton of upside. Does have 3 double-digit games in the postseason, but has to get multiple hits to get there. Isn't really driving the ball. Has, 2 extra base hits? 3 extra base hits in the postseason. He's just in a great lineup spot, so points definitely matter for him. Jimenez, he's fine as a dart throw. He's probably a better play than Pages is at this point. He's just not overly exciting. I realize he hit 2 home runs back-to-back games, but Pages has a lot more power upside, and that's generally what we target in these contests. When it comes to relief pitching, it's going to be very similar every day. Fluharty has a role against Ohtani, against Betts, against Freeman. Varland looked terrible, but I do think Toronto goes back to him if need be, and Hoffman being their closer. On the other side with the Dodgers, it's a little tougher. Sasaki definitely got to be used at some point, right? Banda probably gets a better role, and Treinen hasn't been used yet either in this series. And he's the one guy with Sasaki that's been used plenty so far in the postseason by the Dodgers. So those are the guys that I'm trying to use. At this point, I think it's just been better to play like Jimenez as a punt play, Ernie Clement cheap enough. But at some point, relief pitchers are going to matter in this series. So there we have it. There's our first look at the matchup. If you enjoy what I bring to you, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on. Get the alert anytime we drop videos here at DFS Army. If you want to join us, get access to our coaches, tools, sheets, Discord, etc. Links will be in the description below. Best of luck, everybody.